Probably an outlier. That's how the Washington Post was frantically trying to dismiss its own poll that Grady just talked about, which the pollster said was statistically within what they found earlier this year, showing the 2024 election, if it were held today, Trump would cream Joe Biden by 10 points, 52 to 42%.
While other polling data suggests the two are neck and neck in a hypothetical rematch, that's not stopping Democrats from reaching for the panic button and replacing old Joe at the top of the ticket while there's still time. According to a new NBC poll, nearly 60% of Democrat primary voters say they'd like someone to challenge Biden for the 2024 nomination. So what would that look like?
Well, candidates could go the conventional route and enter the primary race. There's still several weeks left until the earliest deadline to file a declaration. That would be October 15th in Nevada.
The only other option at this point would be a chaotic scene at the Democrat National Convention in Chicago, where if Biden wins the majority of delegates, he could step down and endorse another candidate. But if no candidate secures a majority on the first ballot, the party could be headed for a brokered convention with multiple rounds of voting.
Here with reaction is Fox and Friends weekend co-host Will Cain. Will, the polls are telling the Democrats to cut bait and let the old doddering man go, but it still seems like they're clinging to him, despite what the world is telling them.
Yeah, because it's so hard to move on, even when you're in a busted relationship, I guess, Dagen. It's a matter of which is the more likely impossibility. To think of a candidate, Gavin Newsom, throwing his hat in the ring at this late stage in the game. And it is a late stage in the game, as Sean had mentioned. I think there's still a month to go before they could put their name on some of the earliest ballots like Nevada. It just still seems like an impossibility. So, too, does a second term of Joe Biden at the rate of decline that we are watching, a decline that showed up so obviously to the populace with, as you pointed out, a strong majority of Democrat-leaning voters saying enough, bringing in a relief pitcher. So that leaves me with, I think, I don't know that it's the likeliest of outcome, but at least it's a very probable outcome, this convention scenario where Joe Biden is convinced that he needs to step aside, and he, after having run a primary, and he endorses Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama and attempts to move on in that fashion. But before I let you guys jump in, I will just say, let me put a big asterisk next to what I have to say. Because if the Democratic Party is fine with John Fetterman as a senator from Pennsylvania, they are fine with a senile and incapable Joe Biden as president of the United States. So if he wins the primary votes, he wins the right to be president.
So, Will, you're talking about a senile Fetterman, declining Joe Biden. So now you're going to lead me into conspiracy theory land, which I look at the Washington Post, and coming out with this poll saying Donald Trump is up by 10 points, I would love if that was true. But I wonder if there's another mission here. I wonder if the Washington Post and a few articles in the New York Times, if they're actually trying to push Joe Biden out the door, if they're actually doing some of laying the groundwork for the Democrat Party to say goodbye to Joe and find another candidate. Is this actually a push out of Joe Biden with these pollings and this release?
Yeah, I don't think that's a conspiracy. I think, well, by the way, Sean, I mean, you know, a conspiracy theorist on a hot run, there's probably nothing better to point your direction, your North Star towards the truth than to have the mainstream of groupthink tell you that you're a conspiracy theorist. But that seems likely. I mean, if the polling suggests 60 to 70% of Dems want to move on from Joe Biden, yeah, I definitely think the machinations of the Democratic Party, which include the mainstream media, begin to push him out. It's just a matter of whether or not, look, Joe Biden's president of the United States. That's never happened. There's never been a Democrat who wants to run and who doesn't get to run for re-election as president. That's one hell of a bully pulpit. So write your op-eds, New York Times. Do your polls, Washington Post. Best of luck with Joe Biden.
It's called informed speculation. It's not called a conspiracy theory.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Speculation, Will.
I will be brief, Will Cain, but Biden is underwater. This is the NBC poll among young people 18 to 34. all women, Latinos, independents. In the ABC poll, the net negative on the state of the nation's economy is 74%. Today, the yield on the 10-year Treasury, so interest rates that dictate what everybody pays for a doggone mortgage, hit 4.54%. It's the highest since October of last year. And I just did the calculation. If you figure out what we are paying in interest on our national debt, the current run rate is $1 trillion. That's the interest. It's almost $1 trillion. It's $960 billion. That's more than we pay on national defense. This nation's economy is utterly screwed, and it will not get better if they don't get rid of this disaster, this commander in chaos, as I called him.
The only other option is to talk about abortion and racism and Donald Trump, to distract with the fake fight to save democracy. And that's what the conversation will be. I'm not waving my hand at anything you just said, Dagen, because I think it's the most powerful arrow in the quiver, which is the economy, which is quality of life, which is every single person asking themselves the question out there of whether or not they're doing better than they were 4 years ago. The question for Democrats, because we know that they will, is will it work? Because it's definitely every other arrow in the quiver. They're going to pull them all out. You know, that Donald Trump, or if and by some odd occurrence it wasn't Donald Trump, whatever Republican is a racist, and oh my God, women, you know, and abortion, and then finally it's all a threat to democracy, and it worked. It worked
in 2022.
In 2020,
yeah, it worked well.
Yeah. But the thing is, Sean, that takes us back to Dagen and what she laid out. And Joe Biden's not a blank slate. And I don't know that it works in 2024. And it takes us back to all this polling and whether or not they want to move on from him. But ultimately, history suggests to them, hey, let's roll the dice on this race and abortion and threat to democracy stuff. It's worked for us in the past. Let's stick with Joe Biden.
When it works, don't change gears. As Dagen wants to talk about interest rates, I want to switch gears to the chaos unfolding at the southern border. So Border Patrol telling Fox News this morning that in just the past 24 hours, there were approximately 11,000 migrant encounters at the U.S.-Mexico border. It was the single highest day in recent memory. The Democrat mayor of El Paso, Texas, he's sounding the alarm.
The city of El Paso only has so many resources, and we have come to what we look at a breaking point right now.
And while several Republican lawmakers traveled to the border today to see the full-blown humanitarian crisis firsthand, one person was conspicuously missing, Will. It was Border Czar Kamala Harris. The last time she was down at the border was 2 years ago. Doesn't want to go down and see the chaos. So, Will, we're talking about elections, the chaos. Do you think that this border crisis plays into the minds of voters as we come into 2024?
Well, first of all, I'm going to answer your question directly, Sean. So the governor of Texas has now described what was just reported 11,000 people crossing today as an invasion, presumably availing himself of new constitutional powers to do something with the National Guard in Texas and return people back across the Rio Grande. We'll see if Greg Abbott lives up to that declaration. But it is an invasion, and it threatens our nation. You have no nation without a border. You just don't. You have no home without a front door. You don't. If anybody can come in and rummage through your fridge and sleep in your bedroom, it's not your home. It's just a community gathering center. We don't have a nation unless we have a border. And if we don't have a border, then we just have something that's fundamentally different than the United States of America. Culturally and practically. It's totally different than the United States of America. Now, your question is, does that impact the voter, the average voter, the independent voter, the swing voter?
Persuadable voter.
And you've got a Democratic mayor of El Paso, you got a Democratic sheriff in Maverick County, you got a Democratic mayor in New York City, all saying something. And I think that the answer is potentially now we have reached a breaking point, Sean, where it does actually have electoral consequences, as it should. I mean, it should have a long time ago. But yes, I think we might be getting to a point, and we learned with Donald Trump, by the way, that it definitely motivates the Republican base. I mean, before that, do you remember, like, Mitt Romney and others, there was a question of whether or not Republicans could win on immigration. Yeah. We have that answered. Now, can you win a general election by moving swing voters on illegal immigration? I think the answer is increasingly yes, because we have to believe in the United States of America as a concept, as a reality. Do we have the United States of America?
They destroyed people's children during COVID, and they're going to destroy people's children because the schools are overrun with illegal migrants. Will, but before we go, I want to follow up with you on what's been going on in Maui. It's been almost 2 months since those tragic wildfires there, and starting today, some Lahaina residents are finally being allowed to return to their properties and what is left of their homes.
Yeah. It's I've spoken to a few people, Dagen, who've made their way in. It's cathartic. It's needed for people, even though there's nothing there. I've driven through the burn zone. I was there last week, and I got past all the checkpoints, National Guard, which is there, by the way, largely to keep people safe. They don't want you rummaging around in the ashes. It's toxic. There's asbestos. But they're beginning. You have to wear hazmat suits. You have to wear I think N1000 respirators. But people want to go. They haven't been back in 2 months. They want to see if there's a memento. Your whole life is literally reduced to ashes, and there's something soulful, cathartic about going back home one more time and seeing the place that was your home before we get to the cleanup and then the rebuild. So it's good for them that they got to go back today, and they will be over the coming weeks.
Will Cain, thank you for joining us. I would just note that you are also the host of the Will Cain podcast, which I'm joining on Thursday for post-debate analysis with you and Hegseth, so looking forward to that. I know it was right over there. I saw it. That was my reminder. Thanks for joining us, Pete, and thanks for doing all the work.
That'll be fun. The three of us breaking down the winners and losers
awesome
of the debate on Wednesday night.
It's going to be great, and bringing the story, keeping the story alive.
The Politico Bro Show.
It's going to be great. It's going to be huge. Huge. Will Cain, thank you.